Ah, stupid black marks. Ah, dense. I need a wooden mallet. I can make a wooden mallet. Right. How do I do that? For my mallet project, I'm going to use a chunk of this table leg that my neighbor was throwing out for the mallet head. And I'm going to make a Deadblow mallet. And I've got these BBs to fill it with. Alright, time to do this Carl Jacobson style. Hacksaw! Ooh, smoky. You know, I wonder what the person who made this table would think of what I'm doing right now. Oh! Hooray! Alright, now I'm going to mount this half up on the 4-jaws chuck. Turn out the inside a little bit so it'll match up, and this can be the cap. And then I'll fill this up with BBs. Overdrive! So, you get the idea that I really need some Forstner bits. I'm going to have a lot of boring video here. Okay, time to go whole hog. Burn! Aw. Terrible idea! Hooray, it's over! Oh, Lord. Twang, 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 twang. So I'm just going to set my calipers here to this tenon so I can easily measure to check if I have a good fit. Just a tiny bit more. That's some high-level woodworking craft right there. Well, it's a good fit. Uh-oh. Oh. Ha-ha-ha. I'm going to add the BBs now, glue on the cap, and then I'll use this hanger bolt to attach the handle. This is where I always punch myself in the face. Alright, so the question is, which way do I want to put this hanger bolt? Do I want to drive the wood screw part into the head, or do I want to drive the wood screw part to the handle? Well, I've got these bad threads, so I think I'm going to put the wood screw end into the handle, and I'm going to have to end up cutting some of this off anyway, so it'll fit. Alright, so now that I've got my plan of attack, I'm going to go ahead and load this up with BBs. Boring shots of sandman. So, now comes the part where I have to figure out where the wood grain lines up. No. Ooh, yeah, that's gotta be it. Alright. Need a mallet for my mallet. Ooh, this is going to be very mallet-y. Remember when I was having trouble lining up all the wood grain? So I figured out why. And I decided I would make a terrible ballistics forensic expert because I drilled out the hole on the wrong side, and I've got a good way to fix this. I have to put this back on the lathe anyway to clean up all the sides and whatnot. So take a little off here, take a little off the bottom where it's a little bit fatter, and we'll get this right cleaned up. And you will never know that this mistake is here. Mwah! It's like magic. So whenever I'm putting something back on the lathe for the second time, I like to take my pencil and just barely put it up against the end that's closest to the tailstock. So the lead is just barely kissing the surface. Like that. I've got a line here that's going roughly 1/3 the diameter of my piece. So I prefer to get that line to be halfway across, but because I have to take off at least that much from this end, I'm not too worried about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a matching seam on this end, and then each side will also get 2 additional on either side of that seam. So I'll have a total of 6 seams, and they'll look decorative, but really it's helping to disguise this glue seam. So to find where that first one needs to go, I'm going to use my calipers. I'm not actually measuring the distance per se, but I'm getting the center of this tip lined up with this seam. This way I can just bring this over here, line everything up, and just dig in the caliper a tiny bit to score my line. And then the rest I can do with the chisel. I've actually sanded this up through 1000 grit because I'm not going to put much of a finish on it. I don't want to put anything on there that might transfer to whatever I'm hammering. So I'm just going to put some mineral oil on it and let it get nice and toasty with the sandpaper, with the 1000 grit sandpaper, and I'll call that finished. I'm not going to put anything on the faces either because later I'm going to put some leather on there. So it'll give it a nice soft hit when I'm whacking stuff. Not people. Blade on. Apply directly to the Vampire Hunter blade. So when you're drilling holes in something round like this, it's very easy to tell how well you did because you just tilt it back and see if it looks like it's more on one side than the other. It'll be more elongated on one side than the other. And you can see here that it really isn't. So I did a very good job here. I have to decide where on my handle I want to meet up with the rest of the mallet. And I think where I've actually got this existing line is pretty good. My diameter there is, my diameter is 29 30-seconds. Let's just bump that up to 1 inch, shall we? So remember how I said one side would look more elongated if I screw it up? I screwed it up. Alright, so I'm not sure how I'm going to fix this. I guess the only thing to do is to cut the handle down and see what it looks like lined up. So I still have my calipers set to 1 inch. So up here, where I've got the calipers, is 29 30-seconds of an inch. Now, I made the decision to just fudge it and go up to 1 inch. Close enough, right? Well, guess where 1 inch is? Right there. So, I'm either going to have to make a new handle or just suck it up and put up with a big gap. So I'm going to cut it where I was originally planning on cutting it, probably a little shy, and just doing a dry fit to see what it looks like. Maybe you won't be able to tell. That'd be great. Let's see what we got here. That is no good. There is a lot of gap there, but with it in place, you can't especially tell. I think what I'm going to do is with the handle in the way, you can't tell that if it's going to be wider this way than it is this way. So I'm just going to scoot my drill bit over here to this side a little bit, take off a little on this side so that the curves match, and I'll hide the mistake. So now I attach the insert nut. This has got self-cutting threads on it. Drop it in and twist it with a flathead screwdriver. So the problem I'm facing right now is that as I drive this deeper in, the handle of this knife is threatening to scratch my surface. Crowbar does not work. Random metal fastener does not work. Bar clamp. Paddle bit. Works. So now, the metal thread part of this hanger bolt that goes into the hammerhead is way too long. And to do that, I think I'm just going to bust out the Dremel tool. Nice. So I think what I'm going to do is cut a slot into the top so I can use a flathead screwdriver to drive this into the handle. Why, the power! I love it! Now I know what it feels like to be a dentist! So I've got my slot cut, and I'm just waiting for it to cool down. And while it cools down, I'm going to go drill a hole in the top of the handle. I just broke my own rule, and I touched the hot thing. Yo, mama! Alright, almost there. So the last thing I'm going to do before I tighten this down all the way is I'm going to add some wood glue inside of that gap just to make sure that it really holds and lasts a long time. So the lesson that I really learned from this build is that you have to trust your measurements. Or you have to double check them. If I hadn't fudged that 29 30-seconds measurement, then I might not have had this issue. Or if I had taken the time to double check my fudging up to 1 inch, then I would have known it wasn't going to work. Alright, so I came up with a bunch of better ways that I could have dealt with this hole. And the first and easiest would have been to drill a 1 inch hole before I started churning this on the lathe. The trick with that is that I'd have to really make sure that everything was centered before I put it on the lathe and started churning. So the second way I could have dealt with this better was to change my drill order. I should have started with a pilot hole, moved on to the paddle bit, to attach the handle, and then drill all the way down for the insert nut. That would have kept everything in line throughout the entire process. So as long as that first drill mark was correct, then everything after it will line up properly. So the third way is actually a fix after the fact, after I made this mistake. And that would have been to file it flat. So I basically end up with a rectangle here. I learned this from John Hines from one of his clamp videos, something I had actually just watched while editing this video. In this video, I want to give a special thanks to Carl Jacobson. When I first got my lathe, I basically binge watched his entire series just so I have a better idea of how to use my own lathe and be creative with it. So thanks to him. So in the description, you'll find links to Carl Jacobson's channel, as well as a link to John Hines' clamp video where I learned about that filing technique. I will also include links to my Twitter, where I am BitXDeadweight, as well as Instagram, where I am UltramaticOrange. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope you click like and subscribe. And I also hope that you comment in the description of anything that you might have learned from this build process. Alright, thanks for watching. Mud on your face, big disgrace, da-da-da-da, all over the place, singing we will, dead blow,